Hey, what's up guys, it's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for today's episode of my random horror reviews. Today's movie, we have a remake from the year 2022. Today's movie is Hellraiser. So I have seen this movie once before, so rewatching it for this review was a second time viewing for myself. First of all, a really cool one to actually have on physical media, by the way, because I just presumed this was never going to get a physical release and just stay on, what streaming service was this on? Hulu. Yeah, I just presumed it was going to stay on Hulu and we're just never going to get it on physical release, so a cool one to have. But before we go into my thoughts of Hellraiser from 2022, let's quickly go into the plot for this movie. So, our lead Riley in this film is a chick with substance abuse problems and practically broke. So she gets talked into robbing this vault by her, I guess, fuck buddy. Inside she finds the notorious puzzle box, which one night after a fight with her protective brother and downing a few pills, she starts fucking with the box. Unfortunately, her brother gets involved just at the wrong time and falls victim to the box and the Cenobites. Now she has to try and figure out a way to get her brother back while also learning the mysteries behind the box itself. So that's pretty much the plot that we have for this movie, so let's move on to my thoughts of 2022's Hellraiser. Now, I remember when this one came out back in 2022 having a fair bit of hype around it, because firstly, everyone just loves Hellraiser, it's simple as that. But then on top of that, it had also been a while since we had something related to the franchise. A good director was attached to this movie, so I can understand the hype. But upon release, I remember this one having quite mixed reviews, and honestly, I'd say that most people were pretty disappointed with this movie. I was probably in the minority that did enjoy this movie. It wasn't a top tier, movie of the year or anything like that, but I thought it was solid, and upon rewatching it for this review, I probably think about the same, honestly. Now, it's not as good as the OG Hellraiser, because that first movie is just fucking awesome. I love Hellraiser, and I don't want this to turn into a review of that first movie, because that's one that I could literally talk about all fucking day and, have even more to say afterwards. And this one is fairly different to the first movie, but to me that's not a bad thing at all. I remember a lot of people being like, oh, it's nothing like the original Hellraiser. That's not an issue to me. I've always said a remake that I like to see is something that is familiar with the blueprints and the fundamentals of, what Hellraiser is, but at least try something new, try something different. Because if you do the exact same thing as what the original movie was, it either goes one of two ways. One, it's the exact same movie, so why would you just not watch the original? Or two, again, it's trying to do the same thing, but trips up with, trying to add new things and different beats, but because it is so similar still, it doesn't have its own leg to stand on either. So yes, this remake probably isn't as good as the original, but at least it's doing something different and, trying a different approach to the Hellraiser universe and Hellraiser story. So getting to the director now, for those who don't know, this is a movie directed by David Bruckner, and this movie feels exactly like something you'd come to know by David Bruckner, just the style and feel wise. Like, if I didn't know that it was him directing this movie and was told to guess, he would probably be one of my first guesses because, as I said, he has a very distinct style and he's really good at capturing atmosphere and things like that. And I do think he was a good choice to direct this movie, and not just because I do honestly think he's one of the best working horror directors or up-and-comers, however you want to word it, at the moment. He's alongside names like Mike Flanagan, Jordan Peele for me, and there's a couple of others in my eyes that I think are really good horror directors working at the moment and doing some really cool stuff, but he's definitely up there, like I was saying. But he makes these movies feel so atmospheric, and they all do have this distinct feel that this movie is no exception to. So relaying back around, yes, it's not as good as the original OG Hellraiser, but I do think it's worthy and solid enough, for a remake. It gives us something different with the story and the lore, and obviously a different style and ideas compared to something that we've already had. So we might as well have tried something different, and I really appreciate that that's what he did here with this remake. Now, I understand that every movie isn't going to be for everybody, but I think there are a lot of dumb things that got so much hate when you're talking about this movie, and a big one with a lot of people that I found were the Cenobites. I still think the Cenobites in this movie are really cool, and come at me for saying this opinion, but I think their overall designs are actually maybe even better than the original Cenobites. Like I said, come at me, I know that's probably controversial, but if you look back at the original Hellraiser films, it's a lot of latex, and it's mostly the faces and heads of the Cenobites that are being highlighted. But these ones are a lot more fleshy, and it's like their whole bodies are something for you to analyze, and just really cool designs if you pay really close attention to how their flesh is made into their costumes and their designs. And they've got piercings where like one bit of flesh runs to here and then it runs to there, and you're like, okay, that's actually really fucking cool. The only thing that I can say against it is that it's just not as iconic as the original Cenobites design, but that's to be expected. This is the first movie where the Cenobites look like this, and it's also the most recent in the franchise. But even the new Pinhead, I feel like got way too much hate early on, and I think that's just fanboys mad that it wasn't a carbon copy of Doug Bradley. I think, what's her name? Jamie Clayton. I think she did a really good job as Pinhead, and again, it's not as iconic, but that's just to be expected. But I feel like she did get just way too much hate as Pinhead. And to be honest, just like the OG Hellraiser, Pinhead isn't even really a main focus. Like, a lot of people go, oh yeah, that first Hellraiser movie with Pinhead. Like, Pinhead's not in that first movie that much. And it's the same with this one. Like, yes, it's probably the Cenobite with the most dialogue and probably the most screen time, but it's not like Pinhead's taking the reins again in this one. So I don't understand why so much people put so much weight and hate onto a performance here. I thought the Cenobites had really cool designs, and they all did their jobs and were effective. So with this movie, I really do feel like there are more things that I enjoy about it than dislike about this movie. The body horror still delivers. The hooks pulling at the flesh and ripping people apart will always make you squirm. But then there's other parts with like a needle going through a character's throat, and you actually see the inside. That was pretty nasty. There's a character with like this mechanical thing built into his chest. That was also pretty gross. Even the part where it comes out of his chest and his body's fixing and mending itself, I thought that was still pretty nasty as well. Really cool effects and styles. There's this thing whenever the Cenobites are coming, the landscapes and buildings start changing, and I thought that was pretty cool. But again, the thing that I respect most about this movie is that it was something different. And again, this movie isn't perfect and it isn't as good as the OG, but at the end of the day, I still appreciate this movie for what it did. I would have hated this movie if it was just the exact same thing as the original Hellraiser, because what's the point? I'll just watch the original Hellraiser. There's no point of redoing it because the first one's so good. It just won't hold a candle to it. So try something different, and I respect it for that. And I know I'm probably doing a lot of praising for this movie in this review. As I said, it's still not perfect. But I feel like there's more that I like about it than dislike. I have questions about the ending, which isn't really the film's fault. It's just more so my own wondering. Like, I have a question, like, what happens to the brother? I won't spoil anything, but, like, now that the movie's over, like, what happens to her brother? Like, I just don't know. I kind of want that to be answered, but it's not the film's fault, really. I really think the final shot of the movie's really cool as well, the creation of a new Cenobite, and it's not really looking like we're going to be getting a sequel to this remake. I haven't heard any news on it. I would really like to see a sequel, see what they do with that, especially, like I said, the closing scene with the creation of a new Cenobite. I think that's something they could build on, if they ever did a sequel. But this movie looks great. Everything technically is solid. I've pretty much said everything I want to say. Like I said, I've done a lot of praising for this movie, but I more so did that because I feel like this is one that gets a little bit too much hate when I think it's genuinely solid and at least it's trying something different. So I'll give Hellraiser from 2022 a solid 7 out of 10. Yeah. Like I said, I feel like there's more positives than negatives with this one for me. I don't know, maybe if you checked it out or just heard other people's opinions that were bashing it, go check it out for yourself, because, like I said, it doesn't need to be a shot-for-shot remake of, the original movie. That's why so many, remakes have so many issues, like the Psycho remake, the Omen remake. Like, they're just the exact same fucking movie. Like, the only things that are different about them make them worse. So, they shouldn't have done that, and I'm happy that they didn't do that with this movie. They tried something different. I think David Bruckner is a really cool director. I really could immerse myself in the atmosphere and everything with this movie. But I'm rambling. I think it's a cool movie. I think it's a cool remake. It's not a top 10 remake or anything like that, but I don't think it's an abomination or anything like that either. I think this movie's actually genuinely solid. So if you have a different opinion on Hellraiser, let me know in the comments. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Let loose, I don't care. But if you agree, also feel free to leave a comment, because I'll probably enjoy reading them a little bit more, maybe, I don't know. But thank you for joining me for this review, guys, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.